friend, the host of Divine Renovation, the co-author of this book. You'll find out about it today. Please welcome Erik Estrada.
Is this make a deal? Are you giving out chips? Hi. Hello, folks. Hello, girls. Got more girls than guys in here. Thank you for coming out, taking time out of your day to come see me. And let's get it started.
Well, I'd like to introduce your beautiful wife,
Oh,
Nanette. Please come out, Nanette.
She's here. Come on, honey. Yeah, this is my girl. She's my main squeeze.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, we been together now 35 years. 35. Married 27.
The warranty's off. I have to keep it.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so Nanette and Erik, and the reason you're up here, not only because you're a wonderful person, a great cook, we had lunch today at their house, it was amazing, is because of your personal life.
Yes.
Tell us how MS has affected you and your family and why Erik is involved with this project.
Okay. Well, I come from a very large family. I have basically 12 brothers and sisters, believe it or not. And my brother, 2
Catholics.
years. Yes, they were. But my brother, 2 years younger than I, when he was only 28 years old, was overcome by complete fatigue. He was a sound effects editor on a lot, carrying 12 reels of film, and fell and lost control of everything. Number of doctor's appointments, didn't know what it was. They finally ruled that it was MS. At the time, he had 2 small children, babies, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "I'm never going to be able to teach my son how to throw a ball," which, you know, it's like you break your heart when you hear something like that. And you know, he went through all the stages of being very angry. He didn't know. There's no known cure of MS. There's you know, a lot of different medications that have been developed, and it has been one of our friends who is having the gala tomorrow, through their foundation, they have raised over $58 million. And there's, you know, cutting edge, and they have a symposium then following. But we got involved because through the years, I personally got to witness, or had to witness, my brother going through such agony. He never wanted sympathy. He never wanted to be treated any different, you know, and from his standpoint, the emotions that, as a father, with young children, had to deal with. He had to make sure that nobody treated him poorly, that the kids weren't, you know, frightened because daddy had an illness. And you know, we lost him in 2000, right when COVID started. And unfortunately, his end of life because of COVID, prevented us from being with him. But he was a warrior till the very end. He just said, "Please, if there's anything that you can do to help find this," he used a few expletives, but disgusting illness, please do what you can and think of me. So that's when we talked about this, and you know, he was, as he said, he was a badass. And you know, he has, up in heaven, he has his wings, and hopefully we can pass the word along that there is hope to live as normal a life as possible, to have, especially young children, accept that even though someone who's caring for them and loving them, their dad or their mom or their, you know, best friend or whoever, that just because they may have this, it doesn't mean that they're any less of a person. They have a normal life. They just need a little TLC every now and then. And that's all that an MS patient really wants, is if she needs assistance, they'll ask for it. And if not, you know, they're regular people, and they just move maybe a little slower. But that's how we got involved. And
So when I got asked about it, about writing a book, being part of it, making it more about me as a cop, because I'm known as a cop on TV, and in real life I am a cop as well. I carry a badge and authority and the whole thing in the state of Virginia. So stay out of Virginia so I don't have to pop you, okay? When they came to me about the book, I said, yeah, I can relate to that book, because Michael, I knew Michael when he was playing basketball in New York 27 years ago. When I first met him, or early on, it doesn't matter, it's years ago, and he was playing basketball, played guitar. He was a really active, beautiful guy, beautiful man. And little by little, year after year after year, because every Christmas, I mean, how many nephew and nieces in your family? Okay, use your mic.
Well, our daughter, who's standing back there, is number 16 of 28.
Yeah.
And
She
then
just
we
turned
also,
her back.
And then we also have 13 great-grandchildren.
So our Christmases were incredible, but every Christmas for at least the first 26 years, we would go every Christmas. All of us would gather together in one house, hide all the gifts. The tree would be bare, and then we'd pack all the kids in the cars, and we'd go to 3 fire stations in the valley. The one on Vineland, the one on Tahunga, and then the other one. Where's the other one? Well, let's go with 2. So I remember those. And we would go and take all the kids, and we'd do Christmas carols and give cookies, right? So it was a lot of people, a lot of family. What?
Because why were we doing that? We were trying to find Santa Claus.
Right? Yes. We're still finding Santa Claus every Christmas with her. Anyway, so, but Michael was always there, and then years later, he was in a wheelchair there with us. Little by little, he was going downgrade. So it was effective emotionally. At the same time, it's her brother. She's my girl. So we had, somebody's ill. So when they approached me for the book, I said, yeah, I want to be part of it. So we're putting the word out, but it was written in a way that young people could read it, because we went to young minds, the 11 and 12 years olds, to read it, so that they can go through life being able to acknowledge an illness and not be spooked by it or put off. Yeah, that's the word. I said spooked, didn't I? That's not cool. Sorry. So that's why the book is, and it's an enjoyable read. And we incorporated a lot of, when it's referenced to Erik, it's about my life in there. So.
And when it's The Very Special Dad is based on my husband Rick, and some of the things that happened to him and his sense of humor. And in the book, you'll find out that when Officer Erik meets this man in an ice cream shop, he has an accident, he falls, and he says, I need to come help you. And The Very Special Dad says, I don't need help, but a neighbor down the way, some elderly folks, need some help. Let's join forces together and we'll do something. So they team up. And that's how they become friends, their families meet. And it's just a real heartwarming story. And it's not only for 12, 13-year-olds, but it's for us too. It's for adults to share with their families and to have a learning guide in the back of the book. So if you have it and you want to talk to your kids, you want to talk to your grandkids, bring it to schools, it's there for you. So we're really delighted. Thank you, Erik and Nanette, for being part of the project.
It was our pleasure. I mean, it's a goal. If someday, like with cancer, like with any other illness, if some kind of cure can be started, and that's a blessing, and that's what is needed, because MS is here to stay, unfortunately, for a while. And but every patient, regardless of the illness, needs just to be treated with respect, with dignity. On harder times and harder days, they may need some support and some love extra without being coddled, but we're all in this together, and the easier it is, the better, for them. So.
And Stephen Manchester is the co-author, who is also a best-selling author of inspirational novels, so check him out as well. And it comes from Just Do Good Entertainment, again, bringing back to the parent company of Divine Renovation. And just thank you again for supporting this book today. Tell your friends, tell your schools, tell your organizations. Do we have any questions today? Yes?
Hi, thank you so much for coming out and doing this.
What was your writing process together when you guys collaborated, right?
Well, we incorporated my story, where coming from Spanish Harlem a little bit, coming from Spanish Harlem, and we incorporated my wanting to be a cop and becoming a cop, and then he put together, he organized it, because this is my second book, and I wrote a book, what 25 years ago? I wrote my autobiography, and it took 14 days to sit with the writer, because they would organize it. I don't have the capability of doing that, and so that's basically it. Like I said in the book, when I'm referenced, it will tell you where I'm coming from and why I'm there. So that was the process for me.
And then also, if once they shot, they sent us the pages, and Valerie and Monty, and at the beginning it was a lot more medical oriented, and it was just like, this is great, but kids are gonna go, eh. So, we kind of scratched a lot of that and made it, then we incorporated some of the dilemmas that Michael was going through with kids. And it's like, okay, how would, and then the project was, how would you as a child react if your mom and dad had it? And it was like, how are they gonna feel, and how do you explain, for little kids, it's okay if somebody's hurting, let's help them, and we can make it fun. And so that took off the sort of softening of the story. So.
And there was a Zoom meetings with the author lives in Massachusetts, he lives in LA, so everything was remote, obviously. And then this magic comes together when you do a project. Even though it's organized and you have storyboards, there's always magic involved. It just happens in that way. Thank you for the question. Anybody else? Any other questions? It does not have to be related to the book. I will give you that.
I'm not going to talk about my sex life.
You, sir. Okay. You, sir, with the cowboy hat. Yes.
I just want to know what it takes maybe to be in your next TV, movie, film, or if you want some talented background on. I think I know a guy.
Oh yes, we're in Hollywood. I forgot.
By the way, my name's Gino.
You know, I didn't know it.
Okay, Hollywood. Thank you for that. Anybody else?
Yeah, don't be shy.
Yes.
I was just curious about the picture. Does the picture have any meaning on the cover?
Oh, yes, it does. You know what? I don't know if you know what the meaning is.
No, I don't.
Well, the picture, he doesn't realize this.
I wasn't told. Why?
The picture is an ice cream shop. And so when he first meets this very special dad, the name of the man in the book is Zeke. That's Rick's middle name. We couldn't have Rick and Erik. That didn't make sense. But because when we shot Divine Renovation, this man was obsessed with pineapple coconut ice cream. And my job, in addition to producing with Monty, was to make sure he was stocked with pineapple coconut ice cream. Haagen-Dazs. And so therefore, it's a great question because it does relate to his love for ice cream.
So we incorporated ourselves in it. It was not made up. These things happen to me and to people with MS. It happens. Your question?
Yeah.
Thank you.
When I was flipping through the book, I noticed a lot of there's examples of assistive tools that people have that would use that have disabilities, and I thought that was really important because people are afraid sometimes when they see a wheelchair, walker, anything that's not what they consider normal. And so I really applaud you for doing that. And was there anything else you wanted to include in here that you weren't able to?
When somebody has an illness, no, I'm okay, no, leave me alone. Somebody has a physical illness, they're embarrassed physically, psychologically, so they don't want you to be seen that way. what we did was try to just get people to look at this book and imprint in their minds that it's okay if somebody's messed up. Let's go there for the choice of words. Somebody with an illness, messed up. Their bodies, their brain, their mannerisms, their motor skills. You shouldn't shy away. You should be respectful, and if you can help, help. But when, I know that naturally people will, if they're on a walker, it's a chore to use a walker. It's a job. I've seen it. Even the wheelchair is a lot of work, and then imagine having to go to an electric wheelchair because you can't turn the wheels, you can't lift yourself off the curb when you're going down the street. So I think that answers you. I don't know.
It was to normalize, you picked it up. It's to normalize the mobility aids that might be frightening for a child, and to say this is to help. It's only to help. It's only going to be a good thing. It's a positive thing to have these adaptive aids. So yes, great point, because we really wanted to make sure we represented those aids in the book. Gail?
Just going off on that, it's a little bit of bringing visibility to accessibility, I think is very important, so children are not afraid of it if they see it out there a little bit more often. But my question is actually to Valerie. Did Rick work on this book at all, or was it started after he, or Zeke, after he left? He parted.
Yes, that's why we did it, because he had left suddenly this earth, and I did not want him to go unremembered or unnoticed, and I wanted to make sure that we honored the community that he was in, and not only MS community, but again, chronic illness, disability, and give it a very uplifting feel to it. So no, I wish he knew about it, but he doesn't. Thank you.
Really good looking guy too. I met him. Freaked out, I gave him a kiss. First one when I met him, and he was driving, and then shortly after that, that's when that happened. But just like Michael, my wife's brother, full of life. They're full of life. A person is full of life and energy and have that go and want to get it. But when they get an illness, that they, the medication that's out there, it's to maintain. It's not a cure, not yet anyway.
Not yet. Any other questions?
Yeah.
You thinking?
Are you?
No, I
Okay, I'm
your
coming.
nose?
I'm coming.
I was just curious. I was thinking about the movie you did, The Cross and the Switchblade, and being a police officer, and we're talking about the youth, and so I was thinking about you're helping with this, but also how have you been able to help our youth, even today or before, or with that movie, trying to help our youth that are so involved in all these crazy things.
God, I'd have to take you back to when I was 4 years old. It's a bit of a story. I was living in Spanish Harlem. Take a seat, relax. I was 4 years old with my mom and my sister and my dad. And at 4 years old, my mother decided to fire my dad because he was stuck on the needle. And she didn't want him polluting us. And then she started dating a cop. And that's where my love for law enforcement comes from this guy, Greek-American, called Pete Panos. And it was wonderful. I wanted to be a cop. My mother loved him, and I loved my mom. Whatever she loved, I wanted to do for her. And I wanted to be a cop because this guy was my hero. First influence as a young man, it was my grandfather who used to take me with him to sell snow cones in Harlem and on the streets during the summer. Teach me about humility and respect for others and being a workaholic. That's why I'm a workaholic at this age. I'm still out here. still doing it. I'll stop when I die. And even then, I'll do it in heaven or down in the basement. So I, at 17, now from 4 to 17, I want to be a New York cop. I'm going to be a New York cop, cadet, and then Albany and become a New York City police officer because of this guy's influence on me as a boy. At 17, I was a pretty girl. Sorry, honey.
It's okay.
There was a pretty girl, my last year of high school, and I figured, I want to meet her. I'm going to wait outside. If she comes out, I'll walk into the bus, the train, or maybe she lives in the neighborhood, and introduce myself. She didn't come out the building. I said, man, I know I saw her. So the next day I did the same thing, waited. After 8 period, she didn't come out again. I said, tomorrow, on the 3rd day, I'm going to follow her. So I was stalking already, right? So I said, I'm going to follow her. She was going to drama club. That's what she was doing after school. And I said, oh man, I grew up in the streets of Harlem. I can act. I knew when to run, when to fight, and when to back down. The streets will teach you that. And I auditioned to get in, to get her. And I auditioned, I got in, and then I got bit by the acting bug. There truly is a bug that will bite you. And once it gets you, oh, you got to have it. You got to have more of it. You got to do more of it. And so, but I had to tell my mom, Mommy, you got to live in the projects a little longer. I can't get you out. I want to be an actor. No, mijo, no. Por favor, mijo. She lost her cookies for about 2 weeks straight. To stop her from crying, I made a deal with her. I said, look, Ma, if I can't make any money in this acting thing, I'll come back. 32 years old is the cutoff date to go to Albany, New York, Police Academy. I'll get an apartment, and you'll live with me while I become a cop. You know me? Oh, no. I said, look, Ma, I want to get you out of here. I can make some money, Ma. Meanwhile, I'm digging on the high I get from acting, but the money was there if you hit. So the first movie you mentioned, I was 19, because I wanted her to live like a queen. And thank God that Chips provided that for me. And I had a living really well, overlooking Central Park, the whole thing really well. And I took care of everything for about 32 years. And that was my goal, to make the bread and get my mother living like my queen, right? Just like her and that one over there. The princess and the queen. And Chips provided me that. But my first movie was a movie called The Cross and the Switchblade. Pat Boone played the cross, I played the switchblade. True story about a priest in Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania, who was reading the New York Daily News about the street gangs in the 50s. The toughest gang in New York at that time was a gang called the Mau Mau's. And he was the warlord of the Mau Mau's. And a warlord of a street gang back in the day was the guy that decided where you're going to fight, what you're going to fight with, and who you're going to fight. That's the war. And I played that warlord, who was a Puerto Rican, born, raised in Puerto Rico, and then moved to New York, whose father used to punish him by sticking him in a chicken coop at night. Can you imagine being in a chicken coop and you move? They're gonna move. So the guy was a brother to the sight of blood, easily. The Mau Mau's was the name of the gang that he governed, and their motto was to draw blood in a fight. Today, there's no such thing as gangs. You know what they are now. They're traffickers, they're drug salesmen, and they're murderers and cutthroats. Back then, everything was done with the fists. If you wanted to settle something, as a matter of fact, when I first took it to New York, I took it to Harlem. And we went through the alleys and everything. When we came out of the building that I spent time in, a tenement on 103rd, between Park and Lex, we came out, there was a street fight. I said, look, that's what we used to do. She's from Studio City. Okay? So, yeah, but it was fun. It was fun to see her freak out. So that was my first movie. And my auditions were all improvisation. Okay? The improvisation means I give you an assignment, go on stage, and your goal is to make sure that everybody prays a prayer, or everybody gets ready to go to the movies and makes a decision what they want to wear. That's your goal. And then you give another assignment to another actor, and you throw them up there, and you got a bunch of people up there trying to govern, and that's improvisation. I had 6 of those. On the 6th one, I decided, you know what? I'm up against the guy that was in Up the Down Staircase with Sandy Dennis, that movie about high school. Tall, beautiful Italian fellow. He's just a handsome guy. He already had a movie. I had nothing but want and spit, okay? So I decided to go to 42nd Street, purchase a switchblade. You could back then, easily. A real good stiletto switchblade with the button and everything. And I took it to my 6th callback, because they were bringing in Pat Boone to pair up and see how we looked, the chemistry. And I had it in my back pocket. And so I walk up, and Don Murray, remember Don Murray, the actor who did Bus Stop with Marilyn Monroe, and he did the Hoodlum Priest, and he played a priest in a movie, and he accepted Christ while he was doing the movie. And the Christian narrative is that once you're tapped on the shoulder by Christ, you got to pay it forward. So he got the right to direct this Christian movie, based anyway, about Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania pastor who saw in the papers that the gangs in New York were out of control, and he said, well, he was in the barn, God said to him, go to New York and help those kids. And he went to New York. His name is David Wilkerson. He came to New York and he started Teen Challenge for the kids, and then he finally got to Nikki. So I come up to the stage where we're having the auditions, and the director, Don Murray, says, okay, Erik, and there was about 8 kids on stage at a table, some from Juilliard and some from this academy and that academy, right? Me, I'm from the ghetto, right? I'm raw, but I want, and I gotta have it. So he says, all right, that's your gang. You guys decide you're going to go to the movies, do something for the evening, and there'll be a knock on the door, which will be Pat Boone, okay? They're going to introduce him. So I go up on stage, I come up, and the first thing I do is I grab a pretty girl and I go, toss her over there, push it like that. Want to get everybody's attention that's out in New York. We had like 6 people. Producer, director, executive, casting, And I take the chair, I sit the other way like this on the chair. I said, okay, listen up. This is what we're doing tonight. I want to go to the movies, I want to get some popcorn, I want some ice cream, and then I want pizza after the movie. So, and nobody's listening to me. Oh, these kids are into their own trip. So I start dropping a couple of F-bombs, which is inappropriate, but I want their attention, and I want to scare them. And I got their attention. And they're looking at me, and I say, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to my piggy banks, and we're going to get some coin, and we're going to the movies. And one kid says, piggy banks? I don't understand. He was cute. I said, we're going to go to phone booths and parking meters. That's where I get my allowance from. Back then, you just go and run. Yeah, it was fun. Anyway, and then there's a knock on the door. I said, you, get the door. And he goes, huh? I said, get the I threw the F-bomb again. He got up, he got the door, he opened the door. Pat Boone was standing in the doorway, right here. And he says to the kid, is Nikki here? I have a message for him. So I lean forward and look at him like this. And just ignore him. Then he asks again, is Nikki here? I have a message for Nikki. Is he here? So I finally just get up. And to really get everybody's attention while they're looking at me and keep them looking at me, I took the chair and I threw it across the stage. Blah, 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 blah. which is great. Everybody went, ooh, you know. Even the actors on stage lost their cookies. So I will get up and I go to the door, and Pat Boone is right there, and I look at him. He's there, and I look at him like this. And there's a thing you do when we were kids, before we had a fight, we would go up to each other and we woof each other. That's when you go up and you look at him like this, like, what a piece, you know, in your mind you think, what a piece of trash. You know? Like dogs do before they pounce. So he says, are you Nikki? And I don't say anything. I just look at him. You know, like, what a piece of crap you are. I give him that look. He says, if you're Nikki, I have a message for you. Jesus loves you. He says to me, right there. And I don't say anything, but I start, you know, burning, getting hot. And to show it physically, I start gritting my teeth so you could see these muscles go, you know, because I didn't want to say anything. And so I grab him by the lapels, like that, and I smash him up against the wall, and I got him right here, and then I pull out the switchblade and go between his face and mine, I go, and the switchblade comes out. Nobody takes a real switchblade, a knife to an audition. Don Murray at the back of the room, yells, stop, scene over. I got the part. That's how I got it. And the fellow that I played is alive and well. Wilkerson passed on. He had one of those theaters on Broadway as his Sunday mission. I mean, that's how far he got, and that's how many people he reached. Mickey's doing the same thing. He brings people to Christ every week. He's still alive.
Wow,
really?
Huh?
And works with the at-risk youth.
Yeah, he works totally. So I've always been exposed to young people. I've always been lucky, and you know, and that when I was doing Chips, I used to get offers to do those whiskey endorsements for $250,000, billboards with me, whiskey, or aficionado cigar stuff. And I would always turn them down because here I was on TV portraying a guy who's a good, you know.
Right.
It was hypocritical to me. The money, I would do it now because I'm no longer on Chip. The money would have been great, but I was making money. As long as I had my mom living the way I wanted her to live, I was good. Then I went off and did whatever I had to do. But from that to the book, to now, to what I do what I've done for the first 8 years. First 3 years I was in Muncie as a cop, and then I said, no, I can't do this. Riding around in a squad car, going to bars in the middle of the night, pulling people over at night, going on domestic calls, you know, being dressed in full, everything real, and people would be out. I'd come out of a home after I got on a call, and everybody you have 20, 30 people around the car wanting to take pictures with Ponch. So I opted for graveyard, to work graveyard. I figured it'd be a lot easier, a lot cooler. No, it was worse. The fights, the bars, the this, the that, the uncertainty when you roll up on a car window, put your window down, you don't know if somebody's in there pointing something at you. It's got very scary, and that was 16 years ago when I did that. And I did it for 3 years as a reserve police officer. But I live in California, I would just live there for a whole week and knock out I had to give them 90 days a year to be, you know. And then I finally just said, I got to get out of this because somebody's going to mess up my hair real bad in the middle of the night that is going to really tick me off. So I had to get out. So what I did was I got involved with Bedford County Sheriff's Department, sheriff called. Shaquille O'Neal gave me the information. Said, Eric, you need to call this guy. I can't do his voice. So you need to call the sheriff. He really could use your help in making. This is when the internet just started. Was coming out, and kids were getting taken off the internet because they were getting groomed. But nobody was teaching them what not to do while you're in a chat room with strangers. You know, there's some things they shouldn't be doing. So he wanted to develop a DVD. We went over to Lynchburg University. What's that university in Lynchburg? It's a Christian university. We went there anyway. Liberty. Isn't it a commercial called Liberty? So we go there and we shoot a public service announcement in Spanish and English. And I had a couple of young girls now in their 20s that were taken, you know, from chat rooms. They were groomed. And so we made all these DVDs so that he could hand out to people. He wanted to hand them out. So that they wouldn't put a strain on the commerce, the city, the money, all of that, what it takes. So we did it. Then, because I called him up, I said, Shaquille O'Neal, hello, sir. My name is Erik Estrada. I'm a reserve police officer in Muncie, Indiana. And Shaquille O'Neal gave me your phone number. He said, you might need my celebrity to do. And he says, oh, would I mind finding you, boy? We're talking Blue Ridge Mountain people, all right, sheriff. And he said, well, I'm mighty fine of you. Well, I appreciate you. I'll tell you what you do. If you ever in these here parts, and nobody's ever said these here parts to me. I thought that was real foreign. So I said, what parts are we talking about? He said, Lynchburg. Lynchburg. The name spooked me, right? So I said, well, sir, how about if I come tomorrow? Well, that'd be mighty fine. I'll pick you up. Let me know. Hung up. I said, no, I got to go to Lynchburg. Where is it? I don't know. It's in Virginia, I think. So it takes 2 planes to get there. Oh, man. 2 planes. Okay. Well, buy me a ticket. Let's go. I went by myself. And I called him up. He picked me up. And we went to the university and used their facilities to do the thing and shot a couple of different versions, some with testimonial from girls that were groomed and taken. And then I said, well, thank you very much, sir, for allowing me to participate in this. Save young people, you know, at least encourage them to be smart about what they do on the internet. And then he says, I said, I leave tomorrow. And he says, I tell you what, don't leave tomorrow, son. I want to take you somewhere. I can't do his accent. I want to take you somewhere. So I said, okay. So he picked me up at the Marriott the next morning, and we got in his Bronco police car, and we headed towards the mountain, up the mountain, ding, 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 ding. And we ended up in this thing. It looked like the Walton's house. It's all wood, a cabin. Right? We walk in, he opens the door, I walk in, and it was round center like that, and each place was a deputy U.S. Marshal or a regular sheriff, law enforcement, on the internet, in chat rooms, being 12 and 11-year-old boys and girls. Yeah. In Virginia, the law is really strict. You know, you can cross the line on the internet, we come and get you. Because you cross the line. Probable cause. We can do whatever we want. We go in your house, we'll take your TV, every plug, everything, to see if we can find more stuff. Because every count in the state of Virginia is a 5-year term. You get a slick lawyer, so, you know. So anyway, I say, okay. I walk in and I see all these people. Wow. Then he takes me over to one gentleman. I think he set me up. He took me over to one officer, said, Mike Harmon, which we had on our home, and his daughter years later, after I got involved. Mike Harmon says, come here, sit down. I look at his badge. His badge says, Deputy U.S. Marshal. You know, so I respect the badge. I ended up not liking him later on. That's why I'm in a different county now. But anyway, because he was a real Richard. You know what I mean? So,
This is a children's book event. I just want to remind you.
we're in Adult Swim right now. No, so he says, sit down. I sit down. And he has his Big Mac computer monitor right there. And he clicks, and he puts a 4, a Y, and a 0. And he says, what's that? I said, I don't know what that is. A 4, a Y, and a 0. I said, I don't know what that is. He goes, okay. Then he hits another key. Hello, you home? Anybody home? Yeah, I got him. They went to the bathroom. Sorry. So I sit down, and he says, what's that? And I say, I don't know what that is. I don't know anything about any of this. Then he hits another key, and now you get all these IPOs. Another. We had about 5 sets of that. And I'm just sitting there looking at him, looking at that. What the hell is this about? He says, you see that? I said, yeah, you see what that is? I said, I don't know what that is. I didn't know what the 4, the Y, 0 was. How am I going to know what that is? He says, well, since we typed 4, Y, 0, you got 457 or so people out in the internet world that want to share 4-year-old child pornography with you. Yeah. I said, 4 letters. I said, okay. I got up to split. I don't want any part of it. Because my daughter, that little monster back there, she was tiny. And he says, go ahead, pick one of these IPs. I says, no. I came to help the sheriff out. I don't want. He says, I got up and he says, sit down. I mean, real butch. So I sat down. He says, pick one. I says, no, I'm not going to pick one. You pick one. I was getting pissed by that. Upset. He said, you pick one. And he did. Click, hit the key, and on the screen came a picture of a beautiful black-haired, long hair. She had to be around 9, in a white dress with a black sash, and she was going like this, like little girls do, and they got a dress on. You know how they do. And boom, there was a cut, and there were 2 men on this child. And that's the first time I ever seen child porn. And it really upset me. It still does, but now so what happened was I got real emotional because I have a daughter. And anybody that has a child, or, you'll get emotional. So I went outside, beat the crap out of 4 or 5 squirrels, anything I could find. I was so emotionally upset. Once it settled down, I came back in with anger. And I think that's what the sheriff intended, to find out if I was, because I turned to him and I said, look, I will leave Muncie Police Department if you will let me join up to do this work and teach me to get these people. And he said, give me the year. And I gave him 8 years.
And that's why Officer Erik and the Very Special Dad was written, because of his police work and his belief in doing good things. Please give them a round of applause. We're going to do a book signing now. Appreciate your help. Let's sign some books. Madison, can you help us organize this? Thank you. I also want to thank my friend Michael Alden coming up from Palm Springs to help us tonight. Michael, thank you. Monty. Woo! Monty. Yay, Monty. Okay, take over.
Absolutely.
My badge is in my jacket.
All right, everybody. So the way that we're going to do the signing is we're going to dismiss everyone row by row. That way you can stay seated until it's your turn to come up and join. Just remember, if you have any trash under your chairs, please try to remember to bring it to the trash bin. We will be signing books and books only, so please respect that as well. And then if you want pictures on your phone, have your camera open and ready to go. Erik will be signing your books. Give us just a couple moments to reset, and then I'll call everybody up.
Okay.
How many children do you have?
I have 3. 2 Mongols and a daughter.
You didn't pay for this.
They're in their late 30s. She's 25. And available, boys. Yeah. I'm Puerto Rican and we're very greasy. I'm well moved.
I was gonna say, Mr. Estrada, I started rewatching Con Mujeres en
Oh, the soap opera.
You just look exactly like the DVD that I've been watching.
That's 30 years old.
Exactly.
31 years old. Pardon me? Oh, that's another thing. I was offered a soap opera. I was in Mexico shooting a movie with the female Rambo action thing. And I was speaking English, they were speaking Spanish, we had an interpreter, that's how we shot it. So I grew up in the streets of New York. At the age of 5, I was selling snow cones, shining shoes at Columbus Circle, always had a job after school, always, to help out, you know? So I lost my Spanish. I spoke Spanglish. To say poop in Spanish is mierda. I was saying mierda, okay? So, and I couldn't read. So he offers me this thing, and I decide, I tell him, hey, look, I don't know how to read. He says, oh, don't worry about it, making you born in Mexico, when you San Diego, you came back. So I'm thinking, I'm gonna speak 8 words in English and 2 in Spanish. In my case, I hope it was sí or no. Easy. No, they sent a script, I couldn't read it. Now, this gentleman you don't want to disrespect. Also, as a Latino, we're taught to respect our elders, especially in the same business. He's like the Aaron Spelling of soap operas. He made all the big hits. So I ended up having my manager, I said, chase him away. Chase him, tell him we want $500,000, blah, 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 for me to do 3 months, 100 episodes. They said yes. I said, no, no. I can't read this thing. Can't read it. Can't read it. Couldn't read it. So, do we have to go?
We gotta sign some books.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's sign some books.
That'll be another signing. My next book, I'll tell you the rest of that story. Yeah, because I can chat. Let's do it.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
I'm ready.
Right front row, if you want to come up, we're just gonna form this line, kind of circle.